Um, what I also like about the state of the Canadian film industry right now is that it gives certain filmmakers who've achieved a modicum of success an ability to really do a lot of different things. People like Guy Madden can not just make feature films, but really successful short films as well. He can go back to making shorts. He can go and make an installation piece that works in a gallery. He can do lots of different things. Adam Agoyan can go off and do opera and then come back and do a feature film. You've got filmmakers who are working in television and theatrical feature film at the same time. I think the range of possibilities for people who are just creative and want to express themselves in the moving image is quite wide in Canada.
You both talk about Canadian films having a discernible distinction from American cinema, and how that's found success critically. But what about in terms of our homegrown audience? I mean, if you look at box office statistics, English Canada less than 1%, been steadily declined despite initiatives like telefilms from script to screen. Do you see that as a status quo that we have to accept, or other alternative strategies that you're hopeful for that we can stir the imagination of our homegrown audience? Because that's one thing that as a young filmmaker I struggle with. I mean, I want to make my films and I want to have them be seen by my own audience here at home, but is there,
I think there's been a great failure in the system, to be honest. I mean, I think it's not just theatrical, and I think that you could analyze why we've had no success in the theatrical market. I think it also extends to broadcast at the same time. For some reason, unlike other countries, I don't think the broadcasting system has played the same kind of role as an organization like Channel 4 in the UK, or Arte in France and Germany, ZDF in Germany. I mean, these are television stations that have had, or television units that have had enormous impact on the feature film industry, not just television, feature film industry in their countries. And for some reason, that hasn't really worked here in Canada. CBC, CTV, Global, for everything that they've done, and they've done some very, very fine things. There's still not a natural home, I think, for Canadian talent, for Canadian filmmakers, or for Canadian visual work. And we've just, to me, just sort of looking back, I've been involved in this industry now for about 40 years, just looking back, I've always regretted that somehow our government bureaucrats or policymakers, or the people actually involved in the industry, the people running these institutions, the National Film Board, Telefilm Canada, and some of these major television networks, have not worked together, I guess. Have not, I mean, the resources in this country are finite, they're limited, and they can't be fragmented. And I think we've had a very kind of fragmented marketplace, which somehow has not served our talent base. And that to me is a great lament, I guess. I'm not sure if it's a loss, but it's something that I regret, because I don't see those levels of support. I mean, Telefilm is wonderful; it supports Canadian filmmakers, the Film Board, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of making significant impact, where you're going to attract more than 1% of an audience, I think that's something that we have not yet, as a country, as a culture, actually accomplished.
I think that the structural things have been in place for decades and decades, and we have been complaining and moaning about them for a very long time, for very good reason. We're an English language country right next to the biggest producer of English language entertainment in the world. So many of our most talented people will take that opportunity if they're given a chance. That bleeds off a great deal of the people who might want to actually stay here and produce stuff locally. We don't control our own movie screens for the most part. They are dominated by Hollywood product, and so that's another structural problem that is very hard to change. At the same time, individual films and filmmakers still do make a difference. You think of people like Paul Gross with Passchendaele, and even Men with Brooms, two very successful films with a very wide audience. Deepa Mehta with Water is another good example. 1 Week recently. And there are films every now and then, and filmmakers who manage to strike a chord. We've got an initiative at TIFF called Film Circuit, which takes Canadian films out all across the country to 200 different communities. And what you often find is that the Canadian films are the ones that are the most successful in small towns in BC or Manitoba or on the east coast of the country. if people just have one night out and they want to see something that's not a big Hollywood product, they will gravitate towards a Canadian film more often than not. And if the film tells a good enough story and is accessible enough to them, I think with these cases that I've cited, then people will come out and they'll really respond well to the film.